Greetings, NFL fans. Today is Tuesday, February 3rd. The Super Bowl is in the books. Maybe the best Super Bowl of all time. Are we willing to say that?
I was going to cut you off during your intro and snag the intro for myself, but I figured I would let you hold on to it.
It's got to be within the conversation of best Super Bowls, right? I mean, we can if you pick that one over, the David Tyree game or the Cardinals Steelers or whatever, you easily could. This game had everything.
All right, well, this is the Shutdown Corner Podcast. I'm Kevin Kaduk here with Jay Busbee and Frank Schwab. We'll be breaking down the entire Super Bowl, which Frank was in attendance for. Frank, you're back home after, a week or so in the desert. Yep. So where do you want to start with this? Do we want to start with Pete Carroll? I mean, I feel like that's been the
work our way back
narrative afterwards. But, Pete Carroll, he's done so many different kind of things that have gotten the Seahawks to this point. I mean, you talk about taking risk at the end of the first half. He could have laid up for the field goal, but they went for the touchdown and tied the game and really put the Patriots on their heels coming out of the second half. So was this the same sort of a chance, or was it completely different?
I look at it this way, and I'll say I don't think it was the correct move, that they didn't make the right call. But listening to Pete after the game, it did make sense. It made some logical sense. And here's what it is. For people who haven't really read about it or anything like that, Pete basically said it all comes down to this. They didn't have enough time to run the ball 3 times. Once they didn't hustle in a play, which maybe because they thought the Patriots were going to call timeout, which they should have. The Patriots should have called timeout. I don't know why they didn't. I still don't. But once you get down to the clock is under 30 seconds, you don't have time to run 3 times. You have 1 timeout. So you have 2 runs and 1 pass. Basically, they didn't want to give Brady too much time, and that's one of the reasons they kind of bled the clock a little bit. But once you get to that point, they thought, okay, second down, we're going to pass, and it's going to be usually anyway, a low-risk pass. It's just a quick slant. It's either going to be incomplete or you score. And the one thing Pete Carroll screwed up with was he said, we just wanted to waste a play. And I know what he meant, but it comes off really bad when that quote-unquote wasted play is second down and goal in the Super Bowl. But, okay, so they figure we're going to pass on second. It's either incomplete or we score, and then we're going to run the ball with Marshawn Lynch on 3rd and 4th down. And that was their plan. And honestly, when he talked about it, it made sense. It's like, okay, well, you can't run 3 times. You're only going to be able to run twice. And they also talked about they didn't have the right personnel in the game against the Patriots look. They didn't think that they were going to be successful on the run, which is, that's very valid too. So all those reasons made sense.
Explain this to me, though. If you're going to pass the ball, why are you throwing it in the middle of a compressed defense? Why aren't you've got a guy that can roll out of the pocket, does a pretty good job of giving up the ball when nothing is there? Why are you making that call?
I think it's just because it was so quick. It was just a quick hitter. They thought, we can jump on him real quick on this. You're not risking a rollout where you can get sacked. And then, that's the worst case scenario. But I agree. If you run basically a play action rollout, because you're going to have to respect Marshawn Lynch. So if you play action it to Lynch, you roll Wilson out to the right. How do you defend that if you're the Patriots? I agree. I'm not defending what they did, what they called. I'm not defending the call itself or the decision to pass. I just understand, I guess, logically where they came from. It wasn't just, they didn't trust Marshawn Lynch, or they didn't want Marshawn Lynch to get the glory, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It was just, this is how they thought through the play. In that 30 seconds, I had to think through the last 3 downs. This is what they thought, and it obviously didn't work out. And it's not a great call, but at least I understand it logically.
Well, give us a sense of what Pete Carroll and what the locker room seemed to be like, because from that standpoint, you just said the most logical breakdown that I have heard anybody say of this entire thing over the last 36 hours or so. Did anybody even remotely believe that as they were saying it?
No, because it's funny because Carroll said this, and then somebody asked him about it, and Carroll's like, well, okay, I'll repeat myself. And then he repeated the same thing. And then somebody else asked about it, and Pete's like, oh, well, I guess he didn't hear me. I will say it again. And he said it again, and somebody else asked him, and he said, I don't know what else to tell you. I'm telling you, so he was getting frustrated, but he only had, the one explanation for it. And then Darrell Bevell said the same thing. He came out and talked. And, the players were just kind of, nobody. I think the most, except Bruce Irvin. I wasn't near Bruce Irvin, but Bruce Irvin basically said that was a terrible call. But the one that really stuck with me was Cam Chancellor, their great safety. Somebody asked him, "Were you surprised at the call, or did you agree with the call?" And he must have paused for about 10 seconds, which is a really, really uncomfortable pause. And then he just says, "Things happen for a reason," and that was it. So. Well, I don't think the players enjoy it.
I kept seeing some reporters saying, hey, that this is a locker room that's reeling. There's a lot of people questioning it in there. Was that dramatic or was that accurate?
I think I think there was some grumbling about it, but I don't think that's surprising. Does it surprise you? Like, of course people are going to question that call if it doesn't go right. Everybody's questioning call. Why would the Seahawks players be any different?
Yeah. I'll tell you what.
But I don't think it's one of those. This might not make sense, but it's one of those locker rooms that if there's a locker room that can kind of handle all this, it's probably the Seahawks, because that's just who they are. They speak their minds. And they have the ultimate players coach, and I don't think that they're gonna like quit playing for Pete Carroll or anything. They just didn't think it was a good call. Nobody thought it was a good call, though.
What was your assessment, though, of Bevell's throwing his receiver under the bus by saying he could have pushed harder? It certainly seemed like he was falling backwards and wouldn't have been able to make the play that Bevell seemed to think he could.
Well, he got beat to the spot. I don't think there's any, I don't know if he didn't expect Butler to come up that strong or whatever, but that's first time I watched a replay, I thought, wow, Lockett really got destroyed on this play. He's got to fight a little harder on that play. He wasn't strong on his route, and he allowed Butler to come in and just physically just kind of displace him. So I know where Bevell's coming from on that. I don't know if he should have said it publicly. And also he didn't go out of his way to say it. It was just kind of one of those stream of consciousness. He's talking about the play, and it's probably a 30-second quote, and he says that one line, and he could take out that line.
I thought that was the sort of thing that probably got pulled out of context, and everyone's like, this guy should never get another job ever in the history of it.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's gonna follow him
It was
around.
just one part, and you know what? He's reeling too. I mean, imagine the scenario. I heard him say it, and I kind of not cringed, I guess, but you know how it is when somebody says something to you, and you're like, wow, he probably is going to regret saying that. And he just. Yep. But I don't think he's wrong. Like I said, the first time I saw the replay on the Jumbotron there, I thought, wow, Lockett just got absolutely just ruined on that route. He literally got physically displaced, and I don't know that they expected that to happen. I mean, Russell, after he threw it, he was talking about the play and all this and all that, and he basically said, I thought we had the touchdown. I thought we had exactly what we wanted. Like that was the look we were going for.
Which brings up the point, though, why go to your number 3 receiver, as Kevin said, inside? I mean, it just seems like an absurdly high-risk play. If you're committed to the pass, it seems like that's an absurdly high-risk pass to go with.
Yeah, you could throw a fade route probably, and nobody's picking that off. But again, here's the problem. We've talked about this all season, and it's kind of funny it comes to fruition. Who else are you going to throw to if you're the Seahawks? You don't got a number 1. You don't have Des Bryant's not walking through that door. Calvin Johnson's not walking through that door. You have Doug Baldwin. You have Ricardo Lockett. You have Chris Matthews, who nobody heard about before this game. And really, who are you dialing that play up for? That's the problem they have.
Steve Largent.
Where's Steve Largent when you Sean Springs, or not Sean Springs, but Joey Galloway? You could dial it up for Joey Galloway, I guess. He's probably still runs a 4.4.
The one person in this equation that we haven't mentioned is Russell Wilson, and I'm not saying he should be blamed for this. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it was a play call. They're 3 feet away. Let's say that play happens from the 5, and he throws the interception there, like on the first down. He's dealing with a completely different world today, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Or if his name is Peyton Manning.
Or Tony Romo, right? If Tony Romo throws that interception, could you imagine?
Oh, we wouldn't even talk about the play call. It would just be, pitchforks everywhere. I mean,
it's not like he didn't do anything wrong on the play. I mean, he could have put that ball a lot lower.
Yep.
Obviously, maybe could have checked somewhere else. I don't think that people are saying, well, why didn't he opt for the run? I mean, Russell, you just don't do that. Peyton Manning wouldn't do that. I don't think.
No. He's not in that spot of his career. And you're right. I don't think anybody is where you're changing that play. Because
you want to talk about, people are talking about this conspiracy theory, and you did a great job debunking that. But if you're Russell Wilson, you want to throw the game-winning touchdown pass. You don't want to.
I think it's just your coaches have a plan for that situation, whether you agree with the plan or not. Again, like going back to, they did have a plan. Like people who just are going crazy about this play call, and it wasn't a good call, but people are going crazy about that. Well, they had a plan. If you run on second down, you kind of screw up their plan. If you're Russell Wilson, you just decide to go rogue and change the play, and Marshawn Lynch gets stopped. All of a sudden, you've kind of screwed things up for the rest of your sequence there. But yeah, I think Russell. And the funny thing is, like, we've all kind of made jokes about Russell Wilson and how he's a politician, and his post-game interviews are he's very hyper almost in his optimism and all that. But as I wrote after the game, that right now kind of makes him the perfect guy for this, because he did throw maybe the most devastating interception in Super Bowl history. And now here he is after the game saying, hey, I'm going to keep my head up. We're going to come back here. We got a young team. We got winners. I expect us to be right back here next year. Now, all of a sudden, that whole shtick he has is kind of perfect for this situation. And I think he's going to be fine. I think I think he does get off the hook a little bit because everybody's decided this is Darrell Bevell and Pete Carroll's fault.
What are the odds that we see Russell Wilson in some commercial, some McDonald's commercial 3 years from now making fun of this? He's taking his tray of food, and he's about to sit down, and then Butler swoops in and grabs it from him.
Maybe if he wins another Super Bowl, it lessens the blow. But yeah, I think people in Seattle would not.
That commercial will not air in Seattle. It'll be like one of those Japanese commercials where the big stars go over and do it on the sly.
Let's see that.
He's going to be paid a lot more money to be that politician next year, so he's definitely going to have to earn that paycheck, because it's not going to be easy, because as we already saw this year. It was hard for them to get through that 16-game grind. I mean, just when you have a high-profile team with so many high-profile personalities, everyone with their own agenda, everyone trying to get paid as much as they can, it's hard to keep together. No matter if your name is the Seahawks or the '85 Bears or the mid-'90s Cowboys, it's tough. What do you think the Seahawks need to do to get back here next year, and can they do it?
Well, that's the thing. The Wilson thing changes everything. It just does. Like you go from paying your quarterback $700,000 to paying him $20 million. It just, in a salary cap sport, that changes the entire landscape of your team. Can you keep a Marshawn Lynch? Can you go get that number one receiver you want? Like let's say Demaryius Thomas hits free agency. The Seahawks need him. They need Demaryius Thomas type guy. They don't have the money to go get him. Now you got to pay Russell Wilson. I mean, that's just life, and he deserves that contract. And you got to pay it to him. But it's just that's life in the NFL. Guys, if you have success, you want to get paid, and they should get paid. But then your depth isn't going to be as good as it was. And although the Seahawks are a very young team, I think that it wouldn't surprise anybody if they did make it back. But things are going to change for them with the Wilson contract. That's why. Going way back, I just was screaming at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers why they don't try Mike Glennon more. This is why I think the Tennessee Titans should give Zach Mettenberger another shot next year, because that is a lottery ticket. When you hit on a quarterback who's making six figures, and everybody else in the NFL, every other decent quarterback in the NFL is making $10 million or more, or 9 to 7, whatever. It's such a lottery ticket. You could literally build a champion if you have a quarterback like the Seahawks had with Russell Wilson. But now that era is kind of over for them.
Now, with that in mind, what are your thoughts on the whole Marshawn Lynch alleged contract? They're talking about paying him $10 million a year. How in the world are they going to field 11 guys on the field if they've got him and Wilson making all their money?
It's such a tough deal for the Seahawks because Lynch is their identity, really, even more than Wilson. Even it's Lynch in their defense, and he's such a great player. But then you start thinking about the lifespan of running backs, and is Lynch going to keep? If you give him $10 million a year, is he going to return on that investment? We're talking about. I saw a report that DeMarco Murray, his first offer from the Cowboys was about $4 million a year. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what running backs. Nobody wants to pay running backs, and DeMarco Murray is an All-Pro. So if you're a Seahawks, I don't know how you could pay Marshawn Lynch that kind of money. But if you don't pay him that kind of money, he might just retire to Oakland. He's just, we've heard that before, that he'd be fine retiring. He takes a lot of punishment, obviously. I don't know. I think the Wilson thing is easy for them. The Lynch thing is really hard. I don't know what they do.
The Seahawks would be in position to grab a really good running back late in the first round, early in the second, if that's what they were looking to do.
Melvin Gordon, just get the Wisconsin band back.
Come on, man.
They
for
for
a guy named Christine to be a star quarterback in the NFL. Can we not go with Christine?
They got Turbin, they got Michael, and I think that it's actually Kristen Michael, I believe. That's how it's pronounced. But they have Robert Turbin, who I think 3rd round pick. Kristen Michael is a 2nd round pick who, he was the guy last offseason getting all the unwarranted hype. So could those guys plug and play? Maybe.
With Robert Turbin on my fantasy squad, he can do the job.
So it's one of those. Do you think hey, running backs are just kind of interchangeable, and Robert Turbin's not Marshawn Lynch, but Robert Turbin making $800,000 is better than Marshawn Lynch making $10 million? Or do you say, God, if we get rid of Marshawn Lynch, we've lost our identity? And that's why it's just so tough for them to come to. What are they going to do? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the weird thing, because Marshawn Lynch, there is not another running back like him out there. It's hard to think of any comp, present or past, he's just such a one-of-a-kind back, such a one-of-a-kind style. And like you said, that identity how can you replicate that?
But at some point, Marshawn Lynch is going to hit the wall too, and he's got 1,200 plus carries the last 4 years, and I'm not sure exactly how old he is, but he's at that age where you start to slow down if you're a running back. It happens to everybody. So I just don't know. That's the one thing. But I do think the Seahawks can make it back, just because they are such a young team. A lot of their defense is going to be back. They're really, really good. They could be back. It's just going to be a lot bigger challenge for them.
Yeah. So we've talked here for about 15 minutes. We haven't mentioned the world champion New England Patriots yet.
It's kind of funny. Yeah. And by the way, we talk about this call and all that and blah, blah, blah. Butler made a great play. He made an all-time Super Bowl play. We've glossed over the fact that he read the play perfectly, read Wilson, and he bowled his way basically in front of Ricardo Lockett and made an interception for the ages to win that Super Bowl. And it's unfortunate for him that we're sitting here talking about the rest of it and not saying and Russell Wilson said it a lot of times, and I agreed with it. The guy just made a play. He just made a great play.
People try to make the NFL a who wants it more league, and people want to say it's just man versus man, and that's exactly what this was here. Sometimes that's overstated, but that's what this was. Malcolm Butler saw the ball, he wanted it, he outmuscled Ricardo Lockett. Super Bowl title to his team. It's crazy.
Not only that, he absolutely eliminated the curse catch from any discussion of greatest Super Bowl plays ever, because that would have been that was Tyree times 2.
I was going to say
that one had held on.
Let's say Marshawn Lynch gets one more yard. We're talking about the curse play as maybe the greatest play, except maybe the immaculate reception in NFL history, right?
Yeah,
that's what.
Yeah, and I thought there was a chance. For a split second, I thought there was a chance he was getting up and running in the end zone too.
I thought shocked. He
looked shocked. He looked shocked.
He didn't know he caught the ball. It just landed in his lap, basically. I'll tell you this. That was one of the weirder stadium reactions I've heard, because nobody knew what happened. Everybody was like, what? Even the cheers afterwards were kind of I don't understand. And then they showed the replay in the Jumbotron in slow-mo. That's what everybody erupted, because then everybody figured out what happened. The ball hit his leg, hit his arm, it was the most. I was at the Antonio Freeman he did what catch, and I immediately thought of that and was just that's exactly what just happened, except with a minute left in the Super Bowl with the game on the line.
It's like when a basketball player just is screwing around after the whistle blows and throws up a long half-court shot and it goes in. But then you realize, wait a second, this is live. That counted.
Were you on that end of the stadium, Frank?
Yeah, I was in that corner, and it was unbelievable. I don't even know. And I wrote, because these kind of things just, I don't know why, but they fascinate me, of guys who, something happens later in the game, Larry Fitzgerald in that Steelers Super Bowl. Larry Fitzgerald cuts it between the safeties and runs for a 75-yard touchdown or whatever it was. That was going to be the play. We'd be seeing that play in NFL films for the rest of our lives. And then the Steelers win and nobody cares. And it's the same thing with Curse. And the same thing with Chris Matthews. And I wrote a post on these two guys. Like, Chris Matthews, nobody's talking about him. If the Seahawks win, everybody's going to be talking about this guy who came into the Super Bowl with 0 career catches, who played in the CFL, wasn't even that good in the CFLs last year there, who was just kind of a journeyman 25-year-old guy, ends up dominating the Super Bowl. And I was just freaking out because I've never seen, there's no comparison for what he did. It was just unbelievable. He just took over that game for a while. Like, he gets his kind of moment in the sun taken away from him. Jermaine Kearse, like, now nobody even really remembers that play. And it's weird we do that because it was such a great play.
But then they get replaced by Malcolm Butler and
immediately
Tom
like
Brady's storyline and
right.
Julie
And nobody
Edelman
remembers
probably playing with concussion, though nobody's saying. And
yeah, that was weird. That was a little weird.
That curse play happened. I ran downstairs, and my wife is not a huge football fan, but she watches the Super Bowl. I was like, "Did you just see that?" She's like, "Yeah, it was awesome." And she was so against the Patriots. She wanted the Seahawks to win. She's like, "I'm going to be so mad if the Patriots end up winning this game." And I'm just like, "They're 5 yards away. There's no chance the Seahawks are winning this game." And so I go back upstairs, and then like 30 seconds later, I see the Lynch run, and then followed by the interception. I was like, wow, I guess there actually was reason to doubt that, because he makes that pass and you're just thinking the Seahawks just won the Super Bowl. This is crazy. So. Tom Brady's defense lets him down for a third time.
Yes, they're going to get beat on some ridiculous play for a third time. First it was Tyree, then Mario Manningham was a great play, and then this was going to happen. And by the way, our colleague Charles Robinson brought up a great point that I wish I'd thought of this myself, but the unsung hero who's never going to get mentioned is Dante Hightower, because he made the tackle on Lynch in the open field 1 yard away. If he doesn't make that tackle, Lynch is the hero. The curse we're going to be talking about is David Tyree times 2, but Dante Hightower, who I guess played with one arm because he had like a torn labrum or something, makes a tackle on Lynch to save the day.
We should do a post on him today, because I actually thought about that. Yeah,
I might do that because it was a great. Yeah, it was a. I mean, there's just finish here. This is fun. It's kind of funny that we've talked. We've talked this far, and we haven't even talked about the first 59 minutes of the game, which was incredible. Like, that's why this game was so fun, because this game just had so many things happen. It was so great.
It really was, and there were some good NFL playoff games this year. I mean, I think the Patriots Ravens was really A+. Yes. That Seahawks Packers game was A+. Then there was a couple other ones that were on that level and got kind of destroyed by the referees. Lions Cowboys and Packers Cowboys. But from the outside, I think there was a roughing the punter. What was it early in? There was a roughing the kicker call that was a little bit controversial, but the referees mostly stayed out of the way.
Yeah, there were barely any penalties called in this game. We went it was deep in the second quarter until we had a penalty accepted. That
the refs were told
Doug Baldwin decided to poop a football. That was the only time they had to throw a flag.
The refs were told, unless somebody actually murders someone on the field, keep that flag in your pocket.
Yeah, right. And I thought it was well officiated. Thank goodness we didn't have any officiating controversy, because I couldn't have handled another one. I just couldn't have handled another week of the NFL's fixed and Dean Blandino was on somebody's party. I just didn't want to. And by the way, I know you guys argued about this, in your video series, and that was awesome. But now at this point, after seeing especially the fourth quarter, Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time, right? I mean, it's just over, isn't it?
I was just going to ask Jay that. Are you willing to concede to me, Jay?
I will concede, but not to you. I'll only concede to Tom.
Come on, you Southerners know a lot about surrender.
Yes. We wait.
Wow, the Civil War smack.
We lie and wait, sir. We lie and wait. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you want to go the straight 100% route, you've got Joe Montana right there. You got Terry Bradshaw also with 4 wins. But based on all that we've talked about, yeah, Tom Brady got it done. He did what he needed to do across multiple generations of players, probably, 3 generations of NFL players, of teammates. And, it's impossible to argue otherwise.
I mean,
I would have still argued that point had they lost, because at no point does Tom Brady's legacy get diminished if the Patriots secondary can't stop that play.
Well, he threw 2 interceptions.
Curse makes a circus catch. How does that change what Tom Brady did in that game?
But he did throw 2 bad interceptions. One really bad interception in the first quarter.
Yeah, the opening drive, but it's an academic.
And he also brought the team back from a 10-point deficit at the start of the fourth quarter.
I mean, I'll be honest. At about the beginning of the fourth quarter, most of the third quarter, I thought the game was over. I thought it was absolutely over. Seattle had just taken total control in the third quarter, scored at the end of the second quarter. They were just rolling. They stopped LeGarrette Blount on a 3rd and 1 to start the fourth quarter, and I thought this game's done. It's over. And then Brady from that point on goes 13 of 15 for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, if you're going to be the GOAT, that's what you do.
I have no idea how people who are in charge of writing gamer stories, and particularly people who are on deadlines for newspapers, I have no idea what they did on that, because so many different things happened in that last 5 minutes, and so many different things happened in the last minute. I have no idea how your story would have made sense. The closest I ever came to that was the regional final between Illinois and Arizona in 2005.
Oh, wow.
And I just remember walking out of that building thinking, what the hell did I just write? Now, as internet writers, we have the luxury to step back a little bit more. I mean, you could be Jeff Passan and file at 6 in the morning, but you don't want to be walking out of there at 5 in the morning, so you still have to put together something fairly quickly, get it up. Did you have the feeling at all, like, what the hell did I just write?
I did that. I did that Yahoo championship game. Like, I had 4 different versions of that story written. If you think, I mean, there were, because we post right the gun, and it was, and it was the same for Wetz. Dan Wetzel at this game wrote our instant gamer basically, and I think he said he had like 5 different things he wrote and had to scrap. I mean, it was just insane. And that, I'll tell you this too about that game is, we were in the auxiliary box for this one, so we were outside, and everybody talks about corporate Super Bowls and the crowd is really bad and all that. The crowd was awesome for this game. And a lot of it's because the Seahawks fans are really, really loud, and they were 75% of the stadium at least. And it was it was loud, it was fun, it was a great atmosphere, everybody was into it. It was just a great day. It was really a fun event to be at, fun event to watch. The game itself was just unbelievable.
There's something about that stadium that brings out great football games. Maybe they should just have every NCAA title game and every Super Bowl there for the rest of the time. It's like a magical.
I guess the NCAA Final Four is coming there in a couple of years, right? I didn't know.
Really?
This. Yeah,
I didn't know that either.
Somebody told me that.
I will be there. I love that place. Did you like it?
I love it. Yeah, I've been there a few times, and it's great. It's a great stadium. It's everything about it's first class. Everything about it was great. It was just a fun week. Everything was really cool, and then the game itself. It was just Katy Perry was awesome. I mean, she did the whole the more flying around the stadium and stuff like that. So
now, did you watch? Were you able to watch it? Because you were talking earlier about how you couldn't see. Did you just say screw my job and I'm going to just stare at Katy Perry?
I did. I mean, I'm 100 yards away from Katy. Well, more than 100 yards away from Katy Perry, but
so
it was not like I made eye contact with her. Right?
You're outside the legally required distance. So everyone, calm down.
But yes, she put on a great show. Right? It came off that way on television. That's what everybody says, right?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, I don't know if it was the best one ever, but I thoroughly enjoyed myself, because if you're going to have a Super Bowl show, it should be completely over the top, and that's what it was. I mean, she came out riding on a lion. I loved it. It was like she had commandeered it from the MGM Grand and rode it down to arrive at the Super Bowl, the modern gladiatorial battle.
And the sharks, the left shark that couldn't quite seem to stay on the beat, and the right.
If those aren't available for sale within 2 or 3 weeks, America is dead as a consumer culture.
2 or 3 weeks? I'm surprised they're not already out there.
I already saw T-shirts come down my Twitter feed and ordered a few of those. So
we are all left shark.
For a job well done all year, you'll get a shark T-shirt from me.
Oh, sweet. So, it was. I mean, the entire day was just great, and those things are so much. I mean, I heard, like we talked about last week, I heard guys complaining about being at the Super Bowl, but I don't know how you can. It was just so much. It was just awe-inspiring to be there and to see this great game and these 2 great teams. And, you watch, you get the view of just the Patriots just streaming off the sideline after Butler's pick, and kind of just trying to take it all in. And Brandon Browner goes and he taunts the Patriots sideline or the Seahawks sideline after that last play, and then the brawl breaks out. Which at that point I was like, oh my god, I just need this. I need the ride to stop right now. There's just too much going on. Like, there's just too much to handle. I don't need a brawl of Bruce Irvin and Gronkowski throwing haymakers at each other. Just a crazy event.
Well, breakdown. People saw, obviously it was the most watched program in American history, and everybody saw what happened on TV. Break down what you saw after the game, in addition to the Seahawks locker room. What was it like under the stadium? What was the general atmosphere there?
It was just, it's just a lot of. You see the celebrants, is that correct? You see them a lot more, and the Seahawks were in right away. There's always people hanging out. There's always hangers on, family, whatever, and it's just you see these Patriots just overwhelmed by the moment, and a lot of these guys, it is their first time. The Patriots haven't won in a really long time. Like Vince Wilfork has a ring, and Brady has a few, but a lot of these guys it's their first time. Guys like Gronk and all them. So we think of the Patriots being this great, great dynasty, but a lot of these guys haven't won. And you just see the joy, and it just they're so excited, and the Seahawks are so devastated, and it's incredible to watch. The whole scene is just it's surreal almost.
Yeah, I think I don't think a lot of the country had a rooting interest either way. Maybe people were kind of in on the Seahawks because of the Deflategate, and they don't like the Patriots. But I don't think people were really that into the Seahawks. I kind of felt the same way. I wasn't really pulling for one or either side. I don't really like either team. I don't really dislike either team. I just wanted a great game, and that was exactly how it shook out. So,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what I thought was crazy? People were paying $10,000 for seats to get into that stadium.
That's pretty cheap, wasn't it? For us, it
and some of these tour operators, you could, if you lived in Tacoma or whatever, you could sign up for $5,000 and they'll get you down there and you get some parties and this and that. And these people didn't have tickets. They were saying, we're not going to, we can't buy tickets that don't exist. We know we promise you these tickets. We know we have to deliver at any cost because of the practice of short selling these tickets. Well, they just didn't exist. And some of these tour operators were saying, I'm going to be completely out of business after this because they completely just underestimated the demand for this. And
now, what was the deal Charles wrote about it? And I honestly never got around to reading a story because Super Bowl week is so busy. Like the NFL hoarded some of them for their own secondary market or something,
right? Yeah, the suspicion that the NFL was holding them back.
So they have like their own. From what I understand from his story, they have their own kind of reselling operation, and if you're a coach or player, you can buy seats, and they weren't releasing those to the coaches and players until like Friday or Saturday, so those didn't show up on the market till way later. So they were kind of artificially manipulating the supply to really maybe benefit them. I don't know. But I think even without that, I think that it's not that big of a stadium compared to some of these other ones.
Yeah, each player gets 2 free tickets, or at least last year this is how it was. Each player gets 2 free tickets and then has the option to buy up to, I think, 18 more, something like that, at face value. And then if they don't take that option, then those go back out onto the market. Or if they do take that option, then those people can turn around and sell them for a higher face value.
Right. But even if you're someone like Mike Tice and you want to make like the actual NFL coaches who are not at the in the Super Bowl, they get the right to buy tickets and other people do. So I think they were saying that those people weren't getting their tickets, so they couldn't turn around and sell them or whatever. So. It's crazy. It's a crazy situation because there's so many brokers. They just go on StubHub or whatever site and say, okay, well, I've got a ticket in section 223. They don't actually own it, so they'll sell it for $2,500. Now they got to hustle, and they're banking on the fact that they'll buy it later in the week for $1,500. Well, that didn't happen. They were taking. I mean, some of these places were losing $500,000, $1 million. Charles was writing crazy. So. It makes you wonder if the NFL looks at this and says, "Well, maybe we shouldn't. We should really be playing this in 100,000 seat stadiums or something." Not that a lot of those exist.
They're always going to give. They're always going to give. The Minnesotas of the world. They got the taxpayers to pay for the stadium. They're always going to give them that little bump. They're always going to reward them for that. But and that's the thing. It's like we've joked about, they're pricing out the normal fan. Well, Super Bowl's really not for the normal fan. It's tough to get in. It's supply and demand.
You read the comments on that. It's like, I've been priced out of the Super Bowl. It's like, when were you ever priced in the Super Bowl? What do you want? Like the $4 4 hot dogs?
Yeah, you had that great tweet about that.
This isn't the Durham Bulls, man.
It's like me saying, Mercedes-Benz has priced me out of owning an S500 or whatever. That they have. That's exactly what happened.
That's their point.
Yeah, and then the thing is, I don't know. Let's say, Frank, you weren't there to cover the game. Mm-hmm. Would you still rather been in the stadium than watching on television? Because we talk all about the NFL is such a greater television experience. Is that the same thing for the Super Bowl, do you think?
It was better this year than it was last year, probably because the game was better. But as I said, it's honestly probably seems like more of a Super Bowl when you're watching on TV than it does in person.
Yeah,
like I don't think it seems more grandiose on TV, and if that makes any sense. It's like when you're there, it's just kind of a normal football game. That's a big football game, and this one was really exciting, and this one was a little bit different. And there's obviously you don't have Katy Perry at your typical Broncos Chargers in Week 8, but it seems smaller in person, I think, and I'm not complaining. I love being there.
Well, you don't have the whole graphics package and the whole exploding commercials every
there's no
play
commercials.
Stop.
Like my wife is still telling me about all the commercials she saw. That we went out to dinner last night, and that was a topic of conversation. I didn't see any commercials, and the NBC pays however many billions for this, and this is going to be their biggest event ever. They put on a show too. They do a great job producing the show that you just don't get when you're there. Even though, like I said, I'm not complaining. It's just it is. I've noticed being in a couple Super Bowls now that the events doesn't seem like the biggest deal in the history of the world like it does on TV.
Frank Schwab says Super Bowl not a big deal live on Shutdown Corner.
And probably Seahawks fans who I saw at the airport yesterday morning probably feel the same way. Like, screw the Super Bowl. I don't need it.
Can you imagine emptying your bank account for that gut punch?
Like at least when I went, as I've complained about 8 billion times, at least when I went to the Final Four last year, I saw Wisconsin lose on that horribly lucky 3-pointer last year. At least I didn't spend $10,000 for my ticket. I'd have felt a little bit different other than the 180 or whatever I spent.
Yeah. So it was crazy. I kind of felt I was really ready for that Super Bowl to get here. I was around Friday afternoon. I was just like, man, I just had so much enough of that. I wasn't even in Arizona. I wasn't around the game, but obviously Jay and I were really plugged in, writing about it and directing coverage. 2 weeks, man, that was a long time. That was like the longest 2 weeks ever.
And that's never going to change, is it? I mean, there was a time when it was 1 week based on the calendar, but that's never going to change.
I think, what is the reason for that? And I've heard it before. I don't think it's just to create hype either. I think there's a logistics reason, like they need an extra week to set up. Or it's something. There is a reason for it, and it's not just by having an extra week we're gonna drive up ratings. Because I think people would tune in if it was 1 week, but. I think the NFL definitely is not changing the 2-week thing. It works for them. We'll always have some story on that dead week to get us through, whether it's Richard.
There's probably something to do with the planetary alignment and the Illuminati. It's just proclaimed that way, I think.
And they're doing a Pro Bowl now in that off week too, so that changes things. But yeah, I was ready for the game to get there, and then it doesn't disappoint. Look, we've talked about this. This season wasn't great for the NFL, and I'm not just talking off the field. I think on the field there were a lot of blowouts and big games. We didn't have a ton of drama. It was still fun. It was still the NFL, but it wasn't that great season. We look back, but it finished well. Like if that was all so we could get that Super Bowl, all right, that's cool. I can live with that.
You got your moral equivalency going there. I can
and again,
take all the evil if it leads to that.
I'm talking on the field. We had so many dog games this season, but it finished with a kick, didn't it?
It really did. All right, so we talk about 2 weeks. Going to seem long. I think this next 7 months or so is going to seem even longer. What are you looking forward to the most in the off season, Frank?
That's the thing. It's like we were all a lot of us writers were saying like, well, okay, I'll see you in 2 weeks at the combine. All right, it never ends. It's never like we're writing stuff today at Shutdown, and yesterday was a busy day at Shutdown with all the crazy stuff that happened in the NFL. It's like the NFL never slows down, man. It really doesn't. At least not until the draft is over, and that's at the end of April. So, but yeah, it's going to be. It's always. There's always that tinge of sadness of like, oh, wow, that was the last I'm going to see of competitive football in 7 months. That kind of stinks.
Well, the NFL is coming to do the draft in Chicago, so that should be interesting. We've got the Cleveland Browns saga to follow. Johnny Manziel's going to rehab, which good for him for acknowledging he has a problem. Hopefully it works out for him.
Peyton Manning should be,
Peyton Manning
is I assume return in the next week or two. We have, are the Bears going to trade Jay Cutler? I think that's going to be a big storyline that may or may not come to fruition. And then you got the free agency should be there's a lot. I mean, last year was kind of, I don't want to say boring when it came to free agency, but there wasn't a star power like this year where you got, if these guys hit the market, Des Bryant and DeMarco Murray and Demaryius Thomas and Ndamukong Suh and Darrelle Revis maybe. I mean, there's a lot of big time free agency.
Why doesn't the NFL? Man, you're typing loud, dude.
Sorry.
Why doesn't the NFL do like college football does and have spring football? I mean, colleges sell out all the time. Why not the NFL?
They do. We just don't. We don't have a spring game, I guess, to get everybody hyped up.
They should, man. That would be. Can you imagine what that would?
Oh my God, the Denver Broncos spring game. That would be. Yeah, get Alabama type crowds. I'll tell you that. Like, yeah, everybody comes out to see Brock Osweiler or whatever because they haven't seen football in 3 months. Yeah,
exactly.
Don't let Roger Goodell hear that idea, please, because I'll be covering spring games in April.
Not before that. You're fine with the combine.
The combine is what it is. It'll be an interesting one this year with a certain quarterback who's going to be there for Florida State. That'll be quite interesting. I assume.
Haven't heard of
him. Hide your crab legs.
Who's that? What's his name?
I can't even remember. But yeah, this will. That's the thing. The NFL it's the popularity of the NFL never ceases to amaze me, and it never stops. And like I said, I'll be in Indy, and I think literally 14 days from today, and we'll start it all again. We'll hear every one of these coaches and all these college prospects speak. We'll have new storylines, and then free agency. I believe March 9th is when that starts, which isn't really that far away. And then right after that, you get into the draft, and it's just the NFL's done such a great job manipulating the calendar. They've done an unbelievable job making sure that aside from a few weeks in June and early July, they're always in the middle of things, and nobody ever forgets the NFL's there.
Yeah, well, it should be fun. Hey, I want to thank all of our listeners for sticking with us all season. It's been great. This is really, the best part of our weeks, getting together to talk football, and we have a lot of fun. I want to thank Jay and Frank. You guys are awesome. Two of the hardest workers I know. It's been a great season.
We've got them fooled, Frank.
No, but seriously, it's really cool, and I don't think we're going away. I think there's so much to talk about, like you said, in the off season, that we're going to continue doing regular Shutdown Corner podcast. Maybe not two every week, but I think we should probably aim for one a week. Does that seem doable? We can do
one a week, and we can take brief detours like we did last year into whatever sports topic of the day is around, and then circle it back. And the Patriots will have done something to piss everybody off, and we can always focus on that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I guess that's the next big thing, right? Is the Ted Wells investigation. We have that to look forward to.
I can see the quote marks around investigation floating in the air.
We did. I was on a radio show yesterday. I do every Monday, and we talked about that. Like, what did they do with the Wells investigation now? Because if it comes down hard on the Patriots, you've basically ruined the greatest Super Bowl ever, right? I mean, like, let's just say that the Wells investigation says, yes, we are convinced that the Patriots absolutely cheated to get there, that they got themselves a competitive advantage. You'd have to put an asterisk on the Super Bowl, right? Are they going to really do that? I don't think so.
Yeah. I think one thing our friend Doug Farrar brought up yesterday was a possibility that Roger Goodell is not commissioner by opening weekend next season. You think there's any chance that could happen?
No. Unless something happens between now and then. I don't think. Again, the only 32 people, I guess 31 with the Packers too, is the only 31 people who matter in this whole deal are the NFL owners, and who are literally have money falling out of their pockets because of Roger Goodell.
But you've got someone like the Jets owner Woody Johnson, who's already crying that Goodell gives preferential treatment to guys like Robert Kraft. So there's not any scenario you can see happening where there's a little bit of action.
No. Not really. It would have happened by now. Why wouldn't you have dumped him already if you were going to dump him? I guess anything's possible. I get where the sentiment is coming from because there's been a lot of missteps and all that, but I think it would have happened already. unless they were just waiting until the end of the season. I guess that's possible, but I just look at it as we all complain about Roger Goodell, but are the owners aside? Yeah, Woody Johnson can complain all he wants, but he's at the end of the day probably his attitude. Whoever his owner allies are, the Rooneys or whatever, say, "Hey Woody, how much money did you make last year?"
It's also just a form of complaining to the rest to get the better call next time. I mean, he's making a little bit of noise, getting the grease.
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't think even Woody Johnson, who in that GQ piece had complained about Goodell, I don't even think he's given up Goodell because again.
Frank is just saying this right now because he doesn't want to deal with all the posts that would happen with the commissioner.
I'm going to be on an island somewhere pretty soon. No, I just think that it all comes down to the owners. For Goodell has done a good job for them because they're very, very rich individuals.
Well, I think that should do it for now. I think maybe we should jump on Thursday, Friday, talk a little bit more. You guys want to do that?
We didn't even mention a certain coach's name this entire podcast. You realize that?
Rex Ryan?
Yeah, exactly.
Fox?
Captain Tattoo.
Bill Belichick.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
There's stuff. Yeah, there's enough to talk about on later this week for sure.
We'll come back on Friday for the Bill Belichick story told by Jay Busbee.
That's right. Gather around, kids.
He'll probably put it to song. I look forward to that. So this has been the Shutdown Corner Podcast. Thanks again for joining us all season. Thanks for joining us today. Leave us a good review on iTunes. Tell your friends about us. Again, thank you. We'll see you next time.